everyone, I'm the Tailorette, a historical costumer and creative sewist, and today I will be making the corset for the Pilgrim outfit that I mentioned in my previous video that I'm planning on making. I already have my pieces cut out. I used a PDF pattern and I went and grabbed some fabric from the store. And as most of you know, I'm not using 100% period correct materials. However, I am making it look very, very similar to a Pilgrim outfit from that time period. However, I'm using a few colors that maybe they wouldn't have used back then, but I'm putting my own spin on it, but it still will look like a Pilgrim's outfit. So let's get started. So for the outer layer, you're supposed to use either a twill or a twill linen. And then for the inner layer, you're supposed to use a buckram, which is super thick, and then a lighter weight on the inside to be soft against the skin. So the basic idea, though, that I picked up from this material is that I'm using thick materials, so it's not going to be flat and flimsy. So yeah, and I realized my busk that I have is too long, so I'm going to have to find out how to improvise or chop it off or something. So looking at the instructions, I am going to layer all of these layers together. There's quite a few. So I decided to use the wrong side of this material just because it has a more textured historical look. This looks a little upholstery looking, so I'm going to use the back side, which kind of has like a wool look. I kind of like that feel. So yeah. Yeah, so these are quite a bit of layers. There's 4 layers total, 3 thick layers and 1 thin layer for the lining. So literally we're going to jump right into making the boning or adding the boning into the middle. So, but first I'm going to start with the busk, and because I'm going to be using this ruler, I'm literally going to mark with this pencil sort of, kind of, sort of, tentatively where it's going to go. And just to keep some of these layers together, I'm going to pin them down the center. Then the busk will go in there. I'm going to have to chop this off here, so I'm going to have to use some sort of saw or something. So for this next part, I'm going to mark where the other the bonings are going to go, and this diagonal is where the boning is going to end. So I'm going to fold that over and mark it. They're just somewhat dotted lines. Flip it over. Okay, so the busk will go here, and then all the boning pieces will go here. However, I do want to mark this because I do want to have this curve here. Mark this out because the bones will stop at this curve right here. There we go. So there's, I'm not sure if you can see that, but there's these curves here. This area will not be boned, but this will have boning in it here. So this is where the bones will go, is in this little area here, and then this is where the busk will go. So I'm going to set this aside because that's ready to be stitched, and now I'm about ready to do these back sides here. Okay, so here we have our back piece, and it says bone here. So this is where I'm going to fold it. Right here. Mark it. And then here's the second line. Okay, these are ready to be stitched. So for the thread, I have white on the bottom and then I have gray on the top, or color that matches this. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch right over those lines that I just created. Okay, and then from there I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch from each edge, maybe a little bit more than 1/4 inch, so I can fit the boning in there, because this is where all my channels are, and I'll be sticking the reed boning in there. Okay, so the next step is to actually start inserting the boning into the casing pieces here. So I'm going to flip this around so you can see that I am going to tentatively measure this. Cut the boning. And I think before I stick it in there, I'm going to kind of clip these edges around just a little bit so it's not so sharp. This is reed boning, so it's what the not so wealthy people wore in their corsets. Stick it in there. Hopefully it doesn't splinter through there. Okay, so here's the deal. I made most of the corset and it actually does not fit. So I'm going to have to redraft it down here almost completely because the front neckline was just way too skinny in the front. It came in too far this way and it was too short. So I am basically resetting the whole pattern and I'm not using most of what they designed. Yeah, so we're starting over. So thankfully I actually figured out how to fix it. I changed the shape and everything. I added these panels on the side, which is probably not period correct, but it looks right. So yeah, I have them all boned. All the bones are in there and we're back to where I ended and found a lot of issues. So yeah. So as you can see, there's a difference between the two. That's the one that messed up. And this is the one that I fixed. So you'll notice that this piece here is the front of the corset. Well, the front of the corset is attached in the front here, whereas this, the back is attached. So I changed that up because it's going to be lacing up in the front instead of the back, because the lace would have gone through on this side and now it's going through the front. So I just basically inverted it. So here I am, I'm basically stitching the binding. I cut it at 1 3/4 inch and I put it all the way around the corset. And here I trimmed it down to 1.5 inches because it was just too long, and so I folded it over. And here you can see I'm doing that again here. I'm folding it over and basically curling it to the other side and pinning it down so that the raw edges are covered. And then I take it to the machine and I stitch in the ditch, and it'll show on the other side on the back once I'm finished. So here's the binding that I added here on the edge. I basically just sewed a strip down, flipped it around to the other side, flipped it under and stitched it down. I did a stitch in the ditch right in here along the edge, and it shows on the back side. So I just finished basically the whole thing, except I do have to do hand sewn holes here for the lacing in the front, but I am super pleased with how it turned out. It was definitely worth going back and changing the pattern because yeah, it didn't look very great. So, and it fits great. So I'll just be putting little holes in here so I can actually lace it closed. So I can't decide if I actually want to do grommets for the front or hand stitching, which will take me quite a while, so I might sit and do the buttonhole stitch later on today. But you will want to hit that subscribe button because I am not finishing this project today. I'm going to finish it in the next video. So if you want to see how this all concludes and ends, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and I will see you next time.